Good morning. Well, today is the last day, and tomorrow the students head back to the schools, and that causes parents to worry. The reasons for the worry can be manifold, but I shall take two reasons that are prime in the heart of the parents. Most importantly, parents worry, will the child get sufficient attention? Would he have a complete all-round development? That means education and physical growth as well, so mental and physical growth. Class sizes matter, but do they really matter? As a matter of fact, the new provincial regulations of Ontario say that the kindergarten classes should not have more than 30 pupils. There was a time when they used to have 20. And the parents think that's too much. As a matter of fact, already 10% of the schools have 30 students. And the parents are worried that if there are 30 students, even two teachers will not be able to provide individual attention. So, what to do? Now, the question that is predominant in the parent's mind is that in case the children do not get individual attention, their development may not be as much as desired to be. And the school boards are stretched for dollars. Having less number of students means more teachers and a more developed infrastructure. So the parents get riled up, and the politicians use it for their benefit. They campaign on the promise of capping the class size and score political points among the parents and the teachers junior. Have you noticed that the private schools use this very issue to promote and market their schools? But the research doesn't show the validity of the protests. The size matters is not very definitive. It is always beneficial to reduce the class size, especially in the early years. But the impact on the academic achievement in small shows that it's not necessarily more in the small sizes. You see, what happens is that they do help marginally, but the cost relative to the return or use of a larger classroom cannot be discounted. And that has been seen in diverse studies, the latest being in the University of Melbourne. The biggest issue is that the teachers have been trained in a certain manner, and their training, their capability is more important than the size of the classroom. The teachers do not necessarily their approach in a smaller classes. Their experience and the training has not been attuned to the class size. So, should the protest matter? As a matter of fact, there are 195 factors which are responsible for having an optimum impact of the teaching on the students. And in this ranking of the 195 factors, the class size comes somewhere at 132. So, it is more a hype than a real demand. It's a hype which some parents who are ill-informed depend on. It's a hype which the private schools use to promote and market and sell their schools. It's a hype for the politicians to say that the opposition, while they're in the government, and opposition, while they are opposed, always use against the other, saying that in case they were there, they would have less students. Now, Ontario government has been very consistent till recently. Now they say 30 students. But earlier they used to say that in the primary grades at least, 90% of the classes must have 20 students or fewer. And it is a fact that in the junior classes, if there are less students, then the teachers can give more attention to the reading and to the mathematics, but not about the writing. Now, compare these 20 students here in North America, in Canada, with 50 students in Singapore. An average class has 45 to 50 students. And the students of Singapore are number one in the world in all the tests that have been done. PISA test, what we call them. Singapore is number one. China, South Korea, India. Those are the countries which excel. And in none of those countries, the classrooms are large and the number less. As a matter of fact, many a time the classes are overflowing with the students. And yet those students perform much better in the PISA tests, which are a global way of finding out what the attainment, the academic attainment has been like. So, this hype has to be contained. What is more important is to ensure that the teachers are able to impart education. And the education is related to their age and to the perception of the child. And as I said in the beginning, the second question is, again at the primary classes, should the students be playing more games? Yes, they should be. You know, what is a game? We parents have a faulty notion of thinking that games are not important. Game is simply a structured form of play that excites our senses, captivates the players, and these are the things we want the students in the classroom. Unlike regular teaching, a well-developed game can instinctively convey more meaningful content, and it can provide and help knowledge acquisition and motivation to learn. It can also help develop the degree of altruism. Now the point is, what sort of game should be there in the classroom? Should they be digital or should they be analog? Schools have a myriad of games to choose from. And the curriculum, while also getting students excited about learning, if it includes games, is a much better way. As with most things, digital and or analog, a mixture of the two, is required. Either one may not work. Now, and each one of them has its own advantage. Analog games are tactile tools to make the kid get excited about learning, and digital games add a level of interaction by creating unique experiences, more complicated storylines, and offering different type of player collaboration, such as global villages of the students' teams. Now imagine if you have a digital game the students are playing as a competition, you are creating a global village. You are really creating a community of cultures. By pairing analog and digital games in the classrooms, we ensure that the students are engaged in multi-sensory learning. And that's not done when the digital games are not there. Research shows that the experiences provided by these games, virtual reality, because these games are a virtual reality, they create a sense of empathy and build pathways towards more engaged citizens. You remember in a Jordan refugee camp there was a 12-year-old called Sidra, and the game is there, Clouds Over Sidra, this 12-year-old girl. Sidra debuted the game at the World Economic Forum, this game, and the United Nations has used it as a tool to showcase the refugee crisis from the point of view of the most vulnerable citizens and the victims. Then there are other experiences like Google Expeditions, which take the children on virtual field trips to Burj Khalifa, where they learn about architecture, city planning, and get valuable mathematical skills and science skills. It challenges them to think how the buildings have changed over time. And this Google Expedition is an excellent game for developing the critical faculties, the scientific acumen of the students. Now, what happens is when a student learns these games, the child is taken into engaging content already available in the classrooms. It's already available in the museums and the parks and the homes. But here it's brought right to the student's table. And he takes a decision. He's a decision maker. And that's the most important thing as a decision maker in these environments, and can also see the outcome of his decisions. So it's not only is making a decision, but is able to visualize the outcome of the decision. So there's an urgent need for learning initiatives to make science both approachable and relevant. And the games are important for that. Let's not forget that education is not important for what we teach, but how we teach it. And is how we teach that enhances the students' learning, particularly in the areas of STEM education. STEM means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So games can be used across the students over a range of ages that we can vary. And it can be both content variation and deepen learning variation. For example, in the primary classes, social studies teachers can use digital games like Stack the States to teach the students about the geographical skills, capitals, flags, locations. In middle classes, students can learn about the analog version of the deck building and the games like venomous marine snails. In the high schools, they can have a hands-on game like word peace games about global diplomacy and interconnectivity between economic, social, environmental factors that impact the world. Similarly, there is a game called iCivics that can choose the students and teach the students about the executive, judicial, and legislative branches of the people. And that takes care of that the students learn without being made to be aware of the teaching. They are instinctively being brought in connection with the reality and they learn. And what they learn from this, for example, this iCivic, they will not learn from reading the Constitution or the commentaries on the Constitution for hundreds of years. So, but then one thing, care has to be taken. A game needs to be both impressive and spontaneous. It must give the student autonomy while being motivating, and most of all, it should be fun. There is a science to making games, especially learning games. And then economically, from the national point of view, there's a huge market. Today, game-based simulation learning generates about $13.2 billion for the suppliers. So what's better? It's good for the economy of the country, it's good for the students, and makes students more responsible citizens of tomorrow. They are a powerful classroom tool. So what's important to begin with, what we said, that the size of the classroom is not important. A class can be of 50 students, but they are playing a game that makes them much more involved, much more responsive, and their scope of learning, their depth of learning is enhanced immediately and to a much larger extent. Can there be anything better? Let's get over the hangovers and catch up with the technology. That's the way we can progress. Thank you.